Korean cuisine. Exploring one of the new 7 wonders of nature. Imagine your Korea!
Discover the latest figure-flattering swimsuits for this summer. Be a part of an exotic Thai cooking session. And find out more about Sean Lee Davies, the creative mind behind Tycoon Talk. Thursday night, Dolce Vita at 10 on Pearl.
In an article, Carrie Lam says universal suffrage not a matter for the SAR to decide on its own. The UN calls for humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. And final results of the Tour de France. Good evening. In an article published in the Wall Street Journal, the Chief Secretary for Administration said the introduction of universal suffrage in Hong Kong is not a matter for the SAR to decide on its own. Carrie Lam also slammed skeptics who've adopted a now or never approach, saying there will be more opportunities for reform in the future. Carrie Lam notes in her article that since the 1997 handover from one election to the next, Hong Kong has become more democratic. She praises Beijing for honouring its commitments regarding the SAR's political future. Lam says universal suffrage is not a matter for Hong Kong to decide on its own, but one that relates closely to the relationship between the state and a local administration. She reasserts that the main aim of the Basic Law is the selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage upon nomination by a broadly representative nominating committee in accordance with democratic procedures. She added that mainland and local legal experts have confirmed that the power of the nominating committee cannot be undermined or watered down by other forms of nomination. But some pan-democrats are not buying it. They fear that if Hong Kong settles now for what they see as a watered-down form of universal suffrage, the door will stay closed for further changes in the future.
The message that the Chief Secretary was trying to sell is that Hong Kong people should pocket a less than good proposal first, and hopefully it will, given time, be perfected. But if you look at the wordings of Article 45, the word ultimate is used in that article. So whatever we pocket, whatever we accept for 2017 will be the ultimate model.
Meanwhile, Carrie Lam continues to hear the views of the community. This afternoon she met with 10 of the 18 scholars who earlier submitted a political reform proposal which would allow registered voters to recommend candidates to the nominating committee.
We urge the central government and also the Hong Kong Special Administrative Government to address the concerns raised by 700,000 people as expressed is the de facto referendum organized by the Occupy Central movement.
But another group that's conducting a campaign against the Occupy Central movement presented Carrie Lam with evidence that many people in Hong Kong oppose civil disobedience action.
What we did was we emphasized to the Chief Secretary that although we come here with more than 930,000 signatures, we are not trying to enforce the signatures onto the government.
More than 2,000 new home ownership scheme flats will be available in 2 years' time. Here's Liz Yoon with more.
The newly built home ownership scheme projects will be located in 5 different areas across Hong Kong. Sheung Shui Court in Tsuen Wan is one of them. There will be 3 buildings in this particular project, offering more than 900 flats. The site used to be a factory estate run by the Housing Authority. Apartments in a nearby private housing estate are being sold for $9,200 per square foot. So, if the flats at Sheung Shui Court are sold at a 30% discount of the market value, which will be around $6,400 per square foot, they may be the most expensive ones when compared with other HOS units available at the same time. The other 4 new HOS projects will adopt a single building design. Cheng Chuen Court in Cheng Yi will offer 465 flats. The units are expected to be sold at around $5,200 per square foot. Over in Tai Wai, May Park Court and May Ying Court will each provide fewer than 300 flats at around $5,600 per square foot. Some nearby residents like this one said the new subsidized flats are too expensive. Wang Fu Court in Yuen Long is the 5th and the most isolated new HOS housing estate to be built. Its 229 flats are expected to be sold for close to $6,000 per square foot. Altogether, there will be 2,160 new units available. The Housing Authority will start accepting applications for the apartments starting in December. The flats are expected to be completed in 2016. Applicants have to fill in either green or white forms to apply for HOS units. The Housing Authority ceased the production and sales of the home ownership scheme units in 2002. In 2007, the authority began selling the remaining available HOS units. So it's the first time in the last 12 years that newly built flats under the scheme are up for sale. Liz Yun, TVB News.
Controversy over the arrest of the founder of Citizens Radio. As Evelina Leung reports, he was released after officials extracted the amount he owed from his wallet.
Last night, Tan Kin Sing boarded Kaifeng No. 2, the boat that activists usually take when they head out to the Daoyu Islands to assert Chinese sovereignty over the disputed archipelago. While the Citizens Radio founder was on board as a member of the Action Committee defending the Daoyu Islands, he was questioned and searched by Marine Department officials. They found in Zheng's wallet a demand note for $3,000 in fines for running an unlicensed radio station. The activist was then arrested and remanded at the Lai Chi Court Reception Center. There, correctional services officers found more than $3,000 in Zhang's wallet. He was released after officials took $3,000 from the sum to pay the fine. However, the activist was far from happy after being freed. He said he would rather go to jail than pay the fine if he was given a choice. I want to show that the government is suppressing the freedom of speech, he said. Zhang also pointed out Citizens Radio will continue to stand firm and will fight for a license. The Correctional Services Department refused to comment on individual cases. It said, according to the magistrate's ordinance and prison rules, officials can use the money and belongings found on the arrested person to pay outstanding fines. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Overseas now, the pace of attacks in the conflict in the Gaza Strip has slowed at the start of a major Muslim holiday. Despite ongoing international efforts, there's still no sign of any long-term end to the 3-week-old crisis, which has claimed the lives of more than 1,030 Palestinians and 43 Israelis. James Aiken reports.
After a weekend that saw a brief pause in fighting thanks to a 12-hour ceasefire, assaults from both sides appear to have eased. Palestinians have been preparing for the festival of Eid, marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan. As the overall death toll from the conflict soared past 1,000, the UN Security Council managed to issue yet another non-binding statement expressing grave concern.
The Security Council expresses strong support for the call by international partners and the Secretary General of the United Nations for an immediate and unconditional humanitarian ceasefire
The Security Council is often deeply divided on Israeli-Palestinian issues, with vetoes making stronger resolutions hard to secure. But if Palestinians and Israelis can agree on one thing, it's mutual criticism of UN statements.
So what we've seen after 20 days from the Security Council is a presidential statement that is not a resolution, which the business of the Security Council is maintaining international peace and security, and they should have adopted a resolution long time ago to condemn this aggression.
Ladies and gentlemen, we heard a presidential statement right now from the Security Council that miraculously managed not to mention Hamas or rockets or Israel's right to defend its citizens. We've grown tired of the vilification and the demonization of the only democracy in the Middle East.
With conditions set by Israel and Hamas that both seem unattainable, U.S.-led diplomatic efforts to end the conflict have shown little signs of progress. Hamas demands an end to the Israeli-Egyptian economic blockade of Gaza before agreeing to halt aggression. Israel says no deal can happen until the militants are stripped of their weapons. James Aiken, TVB News.
A brewing crisis in Libya could be nearing a tipping point. The Libyan government is appealing for international help after a huge oil depot caught fire amid clashes over the country's international airport in Tripoli. It claims fighting between rival militias caused the blaze, which could trigger a humanitarian disaster. Dozens died in weekend clashes in Libya's eastern city of Benghazi, where Libyan special forces and Islamist militants clashed. Fierce fighting in Ukraine, where a Malaysia Airlines plane was shot down, has made investigating the crash site next to impossible. The US State Department claims it has proof Russia fired at Ukrainian forces last week. One more reason why the US and Europe plan to punish Russia with more economic sanctions. Sonia Artero reports.
International monitors have abandoned plans to help secure the crash site in eastern Ukraine after deeming it unsafe, despite Malaysia's insistence that the rebels have allowed them unfettered access.
The front lines were not very clear. It was a very blurred picture, and we have been stopped out of security concerns before the town of Shakhtorsk, where we have ourselves witnessed the impacts of mortar or artillery.
The Dutch Prime Minister agreed, saying the more they avoid the escalation, the quicker they can finish their probe.
Het gebied staat onder controle van separatisten.
The U.S. State Department released damning evidence that they allege warrants slamming Russia with another round of economic sanctions. A series of satellite images purports to show that on many occasions, Russian-backed separatists fired on Ukrainian forces using heavy artillery supplied by Russia. Over in Kuala Lumpur, the Prime Minister's family was seen mourning the loss of Najib Razak's 83-year-old step-grandmother who died on MH17.
Good, and
the victim's granddaughter is gutted. She was robbed of the chance to say goodbye.
I would like to say to her that I will take care of you, Grandma. Don't worry, I'm here.
10 days after the plane disaster, and a full-fledged investigation has still not begun. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
The Liberian government has closed most of its border crossings in a bid to curb the spread of the deadly Ebola virus. More than 670 people in West Africa have died since the outbreak began this year. Health authorities have announced new measures to keep a lid on the disease. Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone are struggling to contain the worst outbreak yet of the virus. One of Liberia's most high-profile doctors has died of Ebola, and an American physician is being treated for the virus. Back locally, lawmakers met with government officials to discuss the food scare scandal involving the Fusi Food Company. The Food and Health Bureau says other than McDonald's, it hasn't found any other large restaurant chains importing food from Fusi. Rani Samtani reports.
The Food and Health Bureau said it has checked documents on all of McDonald's imported ingredients from the past 24 months. Of the 110 tons of food that the fast food giant imported from Fuxi, 60 tons have been sealed and packed away. In addition, the Center for Food Safety has looked into